There's a moment in your life when you stop trying to force change, and something deeper clicks, something ancient, something undeniable. It doesn't come with fireworks or drama, but with silence, with stillness, with clarity. And when that moment arrives, everything shifts, not because the world changed, but because you did. This is what people call a quantum shift. And it doesn't happen because you followed every rule or fixed every flaw. It happens because you finally aligned with the truth that was always there, waiting. The truth that says, you don't become powerful, you remember that you already are. And in that remembrance, timelines collapse, identities dissolve, and you're no longer chasing reality, you're creating it. The quantum shift is not magic, it's mechanics, it's not fiction, it's physics. At the smallest level, reality is not solid. It's energy vibrating at different frequencies. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, they all emit frequency. And that frequency is not passive, it's creative, it interacts with the field, the quantum field, which is not somewhere far away. It's here, now, it's the invisible blueprint behind everything you see. And when your frequency matches a different possibility, that possibility begins to take form, not because you forced it, but because you tuned to it. Think of it like a radio. When you change the dial, you don't create the station, you access it. It was always there, but now you're aligned. And reality works the same way. Your current life is a match to your current signal. And when you shift the signal, the external follows. But here's the key. The shift is internal first. It's not about forcing change. It's about becoming the frequency of what you desire and holding it long enough for the field to respond. Not because the field needs time, but because your nervous system does. The quantum shift is not instant because reality is slow. It's instant because you are fast, and your energy can leap timelines, but your body needs a moment to catch up. That's why most people don't experience their shift. They keep looking for signs instead of becoming one. They doubt what's already begun and fall back into old patterns. And old patterns recreate old outcomes, not because they're stronger, but because they're familiar. And your nervous system craves familiarity, even if it's painful, even if it's limiting, it feels safe. And the quantum doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your signal. And your signal is not just what you think, it's what you feel, it's what you embody. And embodiment means living now, as if it's already true, not pretending, not performing, but aligning your posture, your breath, your choices, with the version of you who already lives it. That version is not out there, it's not in the future, it's in you now, waiting to be chosen, waiting to be remembered. And every time you choose it, you collapse the timelines where you're still becoming, and activate the one where you already are. This is not about speed, it's about resonance. It's about becoming so coherent that there's no gap between what you say and what you are, between what you believe and how you move. And coherence is the quantum's language. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions speak the same frequency, the field responds, not randomly, but with precision, not with delay, but with momentum. And that momentum looks like synchronicities, opportunities, conversations, shifts that seem sudden, but were always on the way. And now that you're tuned to them, they can find you not because you worked harder, but because you aligned deeper. And alignment doesn't scream, it whispers, it doesn't push, it pulls, it doesn't beg, it magnetizes. And the shift is not in what you get, but in what you hold, in how you show up, in how you breathe, in the quiet moments when no one's watching. That's where the real shift begins, not in your manifestations, but in your magnetism, not in what you chase, but in what you allow. And when you allow without attachment, when you show up without forcing, when you surrender without shrinking, you become the space for the shift to unfold. And that space is sacred, it's magnetic, it's the space of the true you, not the conditioned you, not the programmed you, but the one who remembers, the one who knows, the one who's ready. And when that you leads, reality responds, not out of obligation, but out of resonance. Because resonance is irresistible. And now the field is listening, now the game is changing, not because you demanded it, but because you became it. And this is the moment. The shift begins, not with noise, but with knowing, not with effort, but with energy. And now that you know the truth, there's no going back. The only question left is, Who will you choose to be now? Who will you allow yourself to remember? And that answer changes everything. The most powerful shifts happen in silence, not in the noise of trying, but in the stillness of knowing. Because when you know deeply, you stop chasing and start aligning, you stop asking and start embodying. The quantum field responds to who you are, not who you wish to be. And this is where most people get stuck. They affirm what they want while still carrying the energy of lack. They visualize success while embodying fear. They speak abundance while vibrating in scarcity. And the field reads vibration, not vocabulary. So the signal you send is not your hope, it's your coherence. Are your thoughts, emotions, and actions in harmony, or are they in conflict? Because misalignment creates static, and static delays manifestation. Not because you're wrong or broken, but because the field is precise. It gives you not what you desire, but what you are coherent with. And coherence is not about perfection, it's about congruence. It's about integrity, not just moral integrity, but energetic integrity. Where your inner world matches your outer expression, where your identity matches your intention. And when that happens, you collapse the lag, you bend time, you unlock the version of you that already exists in the quantum. And you begin to experience life, not as effort, but as flow, not as resistance, but as rhythm. And rhythm is what the universe dances to. The universe is not chaotic, it's symphonic, every atom, every star, every breath, moving in resonance. And your job is not to control the song, but to tune yourself to its frequency. Because when you're tuned, life sings back. And it sings in signs and whispers, in nudges and alignments, in moments that feel like magic, but are really just science misunderstood. Because real magic is not about control, it's about clarity. It's about being so deeply clear on who you are that life can't help but respond. Because you've become a match to the truth you once only dreamed about. And this clarity doesn't shout, it settles, it softens, it stills the mind, and strengthens the soul. And when your soul takes the lead, you move differently. You no longer wait for permission, you no longer beg for proof, you no longer seek approval. Because you are no longer confused about your worth. And that clarity is magnetic. It's the anchor that keeps you grounded while everything around you shifts. It's the fire that doesn't burn, but warms, that doesn't consume, but creates. And from that fire, you forge a new path, not by effort, but by essence, not by striving, but by surrender. And surrender is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the highest form of trust, not in outcome, but in alignment. And when you trust your alignment more than your fear, more than your past, more than your doubt, the quantum bends. Not to your demand, but to your devotion. Because devotion is the frequency of mastery. And the quantum responds to mastery, not with delay, but with dance, not with resistance, but with rhythm. And this rhythm is already playing all around you. The only question is, are you listening? Are you aligned? Are you attuned? Or are you still negotiating with the past, still arguing for your limitations, still rehearsing the identity that no longer fits? And if you are, it's okay. Awareness is the first shift. The quantum doesn't judge, it reflects. So the moment you see yourself clearly is the moment you become free. Not free from pain, but free from pretending, not free from fear, but free from following it. And that freedom is where the real power lives. Because now you're choosing from truth, not trauma, from purpose, not pressure, from soul, not survival. And that choice bends the timeline, it rewrites the story, it activates the version of you who was never broken, only buried, only forgotten, only waiting. And now the wait is over, now the remembrance begins, now the signal is strong enough to override the noise. And what once felt impossible now becomes inevitable. Because you stopped resisting and started remembering. And remembering is the fastest way to shift. Not learning, not fixing, not grinding. Remembering who you already are, underneath the noise, beneath the stories, behind the masks. And when you remember, you stop performing, you stop proving, you stop pretending, and you start living. And that living becomes magnetic, not because it's perfect, but because it's real, because it's resonant, because it's you. And the real you doesn't need to chase anything. Because the real you is the source of everything. And from that place, reality bends effortlessly, undeniably, instantly. Instantly doesn't mean everything appears at once. It means the moment your frequency changes, the blueprint changes, the field updates, the trajectory shifts, and even if your eyes can't see it, your soul can feel it. And that feeling is the proof, not the product, not the result, not the evidence. The resonance is the evidence. And when you start valuing resonance over recognition, when you start trusting what you feel more than what you fear, your reality begins to move. Because energy precedes matter, and matter obeys energy. And your dominant energy is your true instruction to the field, not your goals, not your mantras, not your plans, but the signal you live in, and breathe in, and vibrate in consistently. This is the code. And the code cannot be hacked, it can only be remembered and embodied. And when you embody it, it becomes your standard, it becomes your normal. And your normal becomes magnetic, so powerful that you no longer try to impress life, you just express life through you. And that expression is your gift, not your role, not your status, not your performance, but your purest self. And when your expression is clean, clear, congruent, it cuts through noise, it lands with precision, it moves timelines. And timelines are not fixed, they are fluid, they are fractals of possibility, all existing at once. And your vibration selects the stream, you don't create the river, you step into the one that's already flowing in resonance with who you are being. And when you shift who you're being, you shift the river. And now your manifestations are not new, they're aligned, they were always there, waiting for you to match them, waiting for you to stop playing small, waiting for you to stop rehearsing the pain, and start embodying the power. Because power is not loud, it's stable, it's silent, it's sovereign. And sovereignty means you no longer need to outsource your worth, you no longer need to wait for a sign. You are the sign, you are the evidence. And when you know that, the game changes. The way you walk changes, the way you speak changes. Because you are no longer performing for approval, you are broadcasting identity. And that identity becomes your portal, it becomes your map, your magnet, your method. And the universe responds not to your need, but to your frequency, not to your struggle, but to your stability, not to your chaos, but to your coherence. And coherence is clarity in motion, it's intention without contradiction, it's belief without static, it's a yes that's not followed by a maybe or a but. And that yes is sacred, because it moves energy, it commands attention, it reshapes space, not because it demands, but because it resonates. And resonance is how you navigate the quantum, not by strategy, but by signal. And when your signal is clean, reality bends, not because you manipulated it, but because you matched it. And matching is not about pretending, it's about becoming. And becoming is not about trying, it's about tuning into the truth you buried beneath layers of fear, and noise, and programming. And when that truth emerges, so do you. And you begin to see that the shift was never out there, it was always internal, always energetic, always now. And now is all you need, not the past, not the plan, not the proof, now. And from this now you build, not from memory, but from frequency, not from logic, but from knowing, not from force, but from flow. And flow is not passive, it's precise. It's the most efficient path between presence and potential. And when you trust flow, you stop pushing and start pulling, not from ego, but from essence, not from scarcity, but from certainty. And that certainty creates speed, not the speed of force, but the speed of light, the speed of resonance, the speed of quantum. And in the quantum, speed is not movement, it's alignment. The more aligned you are, the faster life moves toward you, not because you chase it, but because you've become the path. And when you become the path, resistance dissolves, not because obstacles vanish, but because you're no longer fighting them, you're reading them, you're listening to them, you're letting them redirect you without shrinking you. And that is the shift, not in the scenery, but in the seer, not in the stage, but in the state. Because your state is the script, and the moment you rewrite the state, the story can't stay the same. And when the story shifts, so does the scene. And this is what it means to shift reality from within. You don't need to wait for permission, you don't need to wait for results, you don't need to wait for proof, because the proof is in your posture, in your presence, in your pattern. And when your patterns change, your path changes automatically, not slowly, not someday, but now. Because time bends for alignment, time bends for embodiment, time bends for truth. And your truth is not a fact, it's a frequency, it's a living, breathing code that pulses in every cell. And when you live from that place, you become unstoppable, not because you're never hurt, but because you're never held back by the hurt. You become untouchable, not because no one judges you, but because you no longer absorb the judgment. You become undeniable, not because you shout the loudest, but because your energy speaks before your words do. And that is quantum language, that is quantum magnetism. And when your magnetism increases, effort decreases, not because you do less, but because what you do is guided, it's charged, it's efficient, it's clean, it's aligned. And aligned action creates exponential results, not because you're hacking the system, but because you are the system, you are the algorithm, you are the code. And when you tune your code, everything responds, not by chance, but by coherence. And coherence is when all parts of you are saying yes. Coherence is when your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your nervous system, your breath, all move in harmony with your soul. And when that harmony hits the field harmonizes with you. And suddenly the world feels softer, not because it changed, but because you did. And this softness is not weakness, it's power refined, it's strength at ease, it's presence that no longer needs to shout, because it already knows. And knowing is the new currency, not knowing facts, but knowing self, knowing signal, knowing source. And when you know yourself as source, you stop searching, you stop seeking, you stop scrambling for scraps of validation, and you start standing in a steady, grounded, unwavering signal that says I am the shift, I am the spark, I am the signal. And from that place you create not because you need to, but because you can, not because you're chasing, but because you're channeling. And that channel is always open, not just when you meditate, or script, or visualize, but in every moment you choose to be the version of you who already knows. And when you choose that enough times, it becomes you, and you become it. And you realize the quantum shift was never about attracting more, it was about activating more of what you already are. And that activation is not mystical, it's mechanical, it's energetic, it's biological, it rewires your brain, it recalibrates your nervous system, it reorganizes your cells. And when your body matches your belief, when your actions match your awareness, when your breath matches your becoming, reality doesn't have a choice, it moves. And that movement may not always be visible at first, but it is always happening, always echoing, always expanding. And your only task is to keep choosing the frequency that holds the future you, now, not someday, not when it's safe, not when you're sure, now. Because now is the access point, now is the portal, now is the code. And when you live in the now, not as a concept, but as a command, you collapse time and summon timelines that were always meant for you, but could only be reached by the you who stopped pretending and started being. And that beingness is the key. Because being is the highest frequency, being is the end of seeking, the end of efforting, the end of fragmentation. Being is when you no longer outsource your worth, your clarity, your permission. Being is when you sit with yourself fully and say, this is me, this is real, this is enough. And when you hold that enoughness long enough, it becomes the foundation of everything you touch, every word you say, every step you take, every creation you birth comes encoded with that frequency. And that frequency is unmistakable. It cuts through noise, it cuts through doubt, it cuts through resistance, not with force, but with presence. Because presence is the power the mind tries to replicate, but never can. Presence is where alignment lives. Presence is where truth breathes. Presence is where quantum shifts begin and end, and loop again and again into more expansion, more depth, more remembrance. And that's what this whole path is about, not fixing, but remembering, not escaping, but embodying, not chasing, but choosing. Choosing again and again the version of you who is no longer hiding behind old roles or stories. Choosing the you who dares to be seen before being validated, who dares to act before being certain, who dares to love without guarantee. And that kind of energy rewrites reality, not because it manipulates the world, but because it liberates it. Because when you liberate yourself, you free the field. And a free field is fertile, it's responsive, it's ready, it's waiting. And that waiting isn't passive, it's potent, it's a readiness that reflects your readiness. So the moment you stop delaying, the moment you stop doubting, the moment you stop outsourcing, life moves, life mirrors, life multiplies. And the quantum doesn't care about how long it took you to get here, it only responds to the signal you hold now, it only responds to the energy you emit now, it only responds to the posture you embody now. And that now is always yours, it was never taken, only forgotten. And the moment you remember, you reclaim it, not as a concept, but as a compass, a constant inner yes that guides you through noise, through fear, through uncertainty, into alignment again and again and again. Not perfectly, but presently. And presence trumps perfection every time. Presence heals, presence attracts, presence amplifies. Because presence is power, and power is not domination, it's resonance. Power is not performance, it's truth. And when you live in that power, not sometimes, not when it's easy, but as a standard, as a practice, as a devotion, reality bends, reality blooms, reality becomes a mirror, not of your wounds, but of your wholeness. And that mirror doesn't lie, it doesn't flatter, it reflects. And you'll know you've shifted when the reflection changes, when the mirrors show you more ease, more synchronicity, more clarity. Not because life got easier, but because you got clearer. And clarity doesn't mean you never wobble, it means you remember faster, it means you return quicker, it means you choose alignment even when fear knocks and doubt whispers. Because alignment is not about comfort, it's about coherence. And coherent beings are magnetic, not because they try, but because they are. Because their beingness is the signal, and their signal is the invitation. And that invitation is what draws new timelines, new connections, new outcomes that match who you've become. Not because you chased them, but because you anchored them. And that anchoring happens through action, not rushed action, but resonant action, not reactive action, but aligned action. And aligned action doesn't exhaust, it energizes, it expands. And if it contracts, it reveals. And if it reveals, it heals. And if it heals, it liberates. And every liberation is a return, a remembering, a homecoming to the truth that you never needed to force the shift. You only needed to allow it, you only needed to stop resisting what you already knew, and become it, unapologetically, consistently, devotedly. Because the universe always meets the one who remembers who they are. And that's what you're doing now, remembering not just in your mind, but in your cells, in your breath, in your choices. Remembering that you don't have to wait for life to tell you who you are, you get to tell life. And it listens not because you yell, but because your signal is clean, your energy is aligned, your embodiment is clear. And in that clarity, you stop negotiating with the past, you stop arguing with limitation, you stop begging reality to show you something different, and instead, you become different. And when you become different, reality cannot stay the same, it must adapt, it must match, it must mirror. Because that is the law, not a belief, not a theory, a law. A law that governs energy and attention and embodiment. And that law is always responding not to your dreams, but to your devotion, not to your desires, but to your decisions. And when your decisions reflect your soul, not your fear, your truth, not your trauma, your vision, not your victim, your life becomes a masterpiece. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real, because it's yours and it's led from the inside out. And that's what it means to live the quantum way, not through bypassing, but through belonging, not through pretending, but through presence, not through force, but through frequency. And frequency is everything. It's not just how you feel, it's how you choose, it's how you breathe, it's how you show up. And every moment is an opportunity to choose again, to vibrate higher, to anchor deeper, to align more fully. And in that alignment, you don't need guarantees because you are the guarantee, you don't need validation because you are the evidence, you don't need permission because you are the source. And that source doesn't run out, it doesn't expire, it doesn't fade, it flows, eternally, infinitely, consistently. And when you tap into that, you realize the shift was never about arriving, it was about revealing, it was about releasing, it was about remembering who you were before you thought you had to earn your worth, Before you thought you had to become someone else to be loved, before you thought you had to delay your joy for some future version of you. And now, that future is here, and it's asking for your presence, not your perfection, not your plan, not your performance, just you, the real you, the true you, the enough you. And that you is the shift, that you is the key, that you is the answer. And it always was.